Welcome to A Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next. There are some books that I can't talk about, but I have read a lot that I can talk about. I think I've finished 3 books that I can talk about, and then I'm in the middle of 3 things I can talk about. So still plenty of things that you guys get to know. And don't you worry, at the end of the month, all my secret things you can hear about. And it's that vlog, well, it's not a vlog, but that video is going to be interesting because I got every opinion from a DNF to all-time favorites. So that should be fun. But here today, what have I read? I have finished Rainwild Chronicles. We'll start there. I finished The Blood of the Dragon or something. And it's only been a week since I finished it, and I'm already what did happen? And I think that's a lot of that series for me. When it wasn't annoying me with some of its repetitive qualities that were a part of how it was crafted together by not just Robin Hobb, but the publisher team and everything else, it had characters that I was never given a chance to latch onto because the repetitive moments didn't make me feel deeper to them. So although there were people I was interested in watching in terms of the project of watching Thymara, and Elise was maybe my favorite, I actually did have a favorite character, and I really didn't like how their arc went down. And I think there was some cool world building, but once again, we don't get all the answers. And Robin Hobb really loves this world. You can tell it's really well thought out, but it's not why we're here, so I never get all the exposition and info dumps that I want. I'm just I would like to know things. And so we'll see if in the next trilogy I'll get to learn more things, because that's always the thing for me in every single series. And I think the one where I felt most fulfilled on that front was Live Ship. But in Farseer and in Tawny Man, I remember in Farseer, the epigraphs, I'm what is this thing? What are the Elderlings? So I'm always really hooked by the lore, but it's never the focus, and I know that, so I'm not asking the book to be something it's not. But for me, it's, I think, a fairly forgettable experience, not a bad experience. I'm not upset with it. The buddy read was, of course, amazing. But, for a series that was stretched out, the ending was so fast. It's not even just a fast, people always talk about Sanderlanches and stuff. No, it's just okay, and the climax is 1 chapter, and now falling action for 2 more chapters, and now the book is done. And I'm wow, I don't know. And I think if it was forced to be this long, I kind of wish Robin Hobb had focused on other sections or brought things in earlier. I don't know. But for me, it's fine. It's a good series. I am glad that I at least know the stuff, because there's definitely lore stuff that is important, and the buddy read was super fun, and there were great moments. I just don't think this is a series that's really going to stick in my brain, which is unfortunate. Let's see. The next thing we can talk about is I read another T. Kingfisher, The Raven and the Reindeer, and this was the perfect palate cleanser for me. This isn't my favorite T. Kingfisher by any means, but I have mental health has been even worse than normal this month, and so I really needed just an instant win, instant buy-in, I guess, to a situation. And right away I'm chuckling at lines T. Kingfisher throws in. I think at the beginning of it, there's this grandmother character, and she has a teenage granddaughter who's pining after someone that she shouldn't be and stuff like that. This isn't young adult, or if it is, it's very dark at some points. It's classic T. Kingfisher, where you have the frivolity and the lightness, and then it's that was a very gross scene. It's that dichotomy that you get with a T. Kingfisher. At the beginning, she's every girl's being not like any other girls. I remember once when I was your age, I was so not like any other girls, I wasn't even myself. And I'm that's so funny. So, it had that levity. It was short, so an easy, serotonin win of finishing it. I don't know the retelling it's based off of. I think it's The Snow Queen. It's whoever wrote, or whoever is most well known for The Little Mermaid tale. It was another one of his, because I remember it was in the author acknowledgments at the end. Yeah, and per usual, it has animal stuff. So if you like T. Kingfisher's animal personalities, full display here. Really fun. So yeah, like I said, not an all-time favorite T. Kingfisher, but exactly what I needed when I picked it up. And then the other thing I can say finished, which is probably my least favorite thing I've read this month, is The Cat Who Saved Books. Which, I don't know, I need to think about it more, especially because we're going to have book club next week, so I need to put together my thoughts for each of the labyrinths and stuff like that. And on the surface, I think it's a nice project, helping a kid through the grief of the loss of his grandfather with these adventures and connecting him with why he loves books. But I think the thematic tone of it was really hard for me to not roll my eyes at some of the theming and some of the things that were being said, because I felt there was a strong lack of outward nuance, which is why I need to like look at it a bit more. Because it was just like, I don't know, things that we talk about all the time on the bookish internet, like, you know, are you really reading if you're reading X books a month? Like, how are you retaining all of that? Like, that's the thing. Publishers are publishing too many books. Publishers are publishing things too short or too long. Like, no one's reading anymore. What do we do to make sure people are still reading? Books have a soul. I don't know. It was a lot of stuff that should work if you love books and are a reader. But I think it was giving me too much of a tone of there is a correct way of loving books, maybe. And I think I push back against that a lot internally, and maybe, you know, it really wasn't trying to do that, but it's just like we got off on the wrong foot. And for such a short book, like it is so short. It's like a 5-hour audiobook, so, you know, and it's an audiobook where the narrator talks really slow, so you can really speed it up if you're able to. I was like, you need to read like 30 minutes of this a day to get it done. And it was hard for me to do that because I just so didn't want to be there, even with a sassy cat, which there's a sassy cat. I just had no buy-in to the character interactions. Even though I've been struggling with grief in my own life lately, the themes of grief weren't really hitting for me. So yeah, it's one I have to sit on a little bit more. I know it's very loved. I just think that this is a case where it is also a thematic work, and I think for me, I really butted heads with the thematic execution of what was going on. And I don't necessarily know if I have even a correct interpretation of what was happening, but that was the experience while consuming the text. It's just like, I don't like this. I don't like how black and white things are sort of being betrayed. And like maybe they weren't being portrayed that way and I just took it that way because I was feeling defensive in the moment. Who knows? Like my mental health has been all over the place. But that was definitely not fun to read. We'll see how the book club goes. Because like what's interesting about the book club is I'm going to be with what I would say are avid casual readers, like people who read enough to come to a book club, but they're not like, you know, bookish internet people who read like a bunch or like who are chronically online. Like it's a different group. So I'm curious if like maybe also my view is a little tainted from just like all the conversations we always have. Like there was a section of this book where this guy was discussing how, you know, music you can listen to all the time, you can do it on your commute, you can do it while you do blah blah blah. You can't do that with a book. And instantly my brain goes, you know, audiobooks are a thing. Like it was just all of these things of just like, I don't buy any of these arguments. Anyways, so yeah, I didn't enjoy that. I read it because I had to. I would have DNF'd after the first Labyrinth if I didn't have a book club discussion that I moderate for it. So, you know, is what it is. There was another thing that I read that I can't talk to you about, but that was like 5 stars. It was so good. It was so good. But we'll just have to wait to talk about that later in the month. What am I in the middle of that we can talk about? I'm in the middle of 2 rereads and a new book, not including the stuff that I can't talk about. So the thing that's not a reread is I'm reading Lightbringer, and I think in this saga, this is my favorite. I think. We'll see. We'll see how the ending goes, but for once, I'm with Darrow again. I'm just like, yes, I don't mind being in your perspective anymore. Although, plot twist, I used to be okay with Lysander perspectives. Well, I think I liked Lysander perspectives in Iron Gold, and then I think both Darrow and Lysander perspectives in Dark Age were atrociously boring for me. And now, in this book, I'm still, like, apathetic to Lysander, but there are very cool things that happen in his chapters, so it's a weird experience of, like, okay, what? Like, that happens to me a lot in his chapters, whereas with Darrow chapters, it's very awesome. It's very awesome. So that's been a big momentum driver for me. I'm, like, 75% of the way through the book, so I think I want to finish it fairly soon, and maybe next week I'll have a Should You Read for the Red Rising saga up to this point. Maybe that'll be my Tuesday video. Haven't committed yet. But that's been very fun and very exciting because I haven't enjoyed Darrow perspectives since the original trilogy. So it's nice to be back. And I really like how everything has been plotted. A lot of my personal favorite tropes and characters have been blended together in a way that I really enjoy. It's very reminiscent to me of like when you have character pairings in like Endgame or something like that, Avengers Endgame, where it's like, yeah, I really wanted to see all these people in a room together. And now I do, and it's great. So very fun, curious about how it'll end. But definitely a nice change of pace from Dark Age, which was, you know, it lived up to its title, I guess. All right, and now the 2 rereads. I've been rereading The Galaxy Game. I am this far, so I'm going to finish that today or tomorrow. I'll put the image on the screen since this is a very shiny book. So this is like a book I don't know or wonder if I can, universally recommend to people. Like, you need to read The Best of All Possible Worlds first, which I do universally recommend. I love that book. I think there are many people who would love that book. I think that book's very approachable. It's very character focused. This book is in that world. You will miss context of world building and character things if you don't read Best of All Possible Worlds, but it's technically its own companion situation, and it's not nearly as character focused. Like, we do follow kind of one or two characters and then see what's happening in the galaxy around them, but the project really is, in the first book, there is this huge moment where a whole planet civilization is destroyed, so we have to have refugees live other places, and now we are fast forwarding, I don't know, a couple years from the Best of All Possible Worlds, and we're now in this galaxy where the people who were displaced had their whole planet destroyed. They were kind of the people keeping an eye on everything in the galaxy. Like, they were in control. So now there's this power vacuum, and we're watching that power vacuum get filled, but through the lens of these young characters who maybe aren't as in the know politically, and we're learning about a new culture on this other planet. And there's this sports game that I can't visualize. It's really interesting, and I really like it, but it's not easy. It's one of those world buildings where it's like, I have to like read back, connect dots. It's very economical in how many words it's used. It's not very exposition heavy. And even rereading, I'm like, I can't remember what we're going towards. And now I remembered, I'm like, oh, that's very cool. And I think on reread it is easier because I am definitely more able to just trust the process. I mean, my first read, I still loved it because it's Karen Lord and I love the characters. And I'm very excited because, after this one, the next companion novel, Blue Beautiful World, is definitely on deck. Like, I need to see more of this universe. And I cannot wait to talk to her and figure out how she came up with this silly wall game that I can't visualize to save my life. Like, I can't visualize normally, but this wall game with gravity, because it's meant to be like a metaphor, and it's also a part of the world building, and it's this idea also of, and I like this because, even today, a lot of our big moments in history are still sports centered. Like, during the Cold War, we weren't always, fighting the USSR, but there were big moments during the Olympics that mattered, and it kind of has that similar-ish adjacent quality. Like, it more recognizes the power of sports and things like that than it focuses on it. And I think that's the thing, is like, this is a broad scope book that does have very intimate, zoomed-in moments, and I think it's hard for me to recommend because there aren't many works like that, and so it's going to be a jarring experience regardless of the reader. I don't know, for me, it's very unique and fun. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like when I read Nine Fox Gambit, where it's just like, I just like went along for the ride, and the world was really cool, and I just trusted the process. So it's very similar to like that sci-fi series to me. So that's my one reread, and then my other one is The Liar's Knot. It's so good. It's just so good. I'm actually currently only reading it because I'm just, at the end of the day, when I've been very, very stressed, I'm like, I can't do anything that uses my brain anymore, and I don't want to do an audiobook, and I'll just take it out, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm back. It's one of the few things that actually helps me escape right now, and I'm really glad it's really long, even though Labyrinth's Heart comes out in like, since you're seeing this, like 3 days, so like, I hope I can finish it right when the other one drops, but like, it doesn't really matter. I'm just very excited to get to the last book, so that's happening next week. So I'm definitely getting to the last books of these two series sometime coming up after I finish these two. And then, like I said, I'm working on a couple things in the background that you can't see, and I don't really know what I'm doing next at any given point. I have so many things that I should read, and I have so many things that I want to read. Like, I do want to get to the new Emma Wong, because, again, I need things that help me escape. But I've also been getting the itch to finally turn on my PS5 again, because I have not done that in a minute. And I've just been like, I miss video games. And video games are very good. Like, I'm looking for things that really help me not think. Or, like, I'm thinking but not about the things that are bothering me. I have this problem with hyperfixation. So things that stop that, break that cycle, prevent that cycle from even starting are good. But I want to finish this blanket first. So that's where the audiobook time has been going. So, we'll see what happens. And if I get good news about something, then I'll suddenly have less reading time, but it's good news. But if I get the bad news, then I'll have more reading time, but I'll also be sad. So, life. In terms of watching stuff, I did see Oppenheimer. I think it's very fine. It's a biopic. I don't it's a biopic, and I don't think it's a bad one. It's just, I don't think you need to see it in IMAX. Maybe that's a hot take. There's one scene that I'm sure looks stunning in IMAX, but everything else is just people talking to each other, which is great, and they're acting phenomenally, but it's just people talking to each other. And the newest episode of My Adventures with Superman, like not the one airing today when you're seeing this video, but last week was so good. So good. I just love this show. I know we only have like 3 episodes left this season, I think, which makes me sad, but I'm also just so happy the show exists. It brings me endless amounts of joy. And last thing, we started watching BattleBots, because one of my favorite non-bookish YouTubers is Movies with Mikey. I really like their movie essays, and recently they dropped an episode on BattleBots, and that's not a movie, that's just a robot competition. And then I realized, oh, there are seasons of it on Max. So we started with the 2018 championship. We haven't finished it. If anyone spoils to me any winners of BattleBots, I will be sad. Please do not. I don't think anyone would. But it's been really fun watching that with our old roommate, who actually is a mechanical engineer and actually knows things about robots. So, like, it's more than us just, like, picking the machine we think looks cool and getting invested in different teams and stuff like that. But that's been a fun thing I've been watching. So that's this update. What are you reading, watching, playing this weekend? I've been also getting more into board games and reconnecting with friends that I used to actually see in person before the pandemic, which has been also a joy. So that's also kind of cutting into my reading time, although I feel like I've still read so much this month already. So maybe there's a balance, maybe there's not. I'm just trying to do whatever makes my brain the least unhappy at any given point. If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a horse because of the cover of Lightbringer. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.